I don't have words. Hello everybody, it's Katie here. Truly I do not know where to start. We got our Alec wedding! My babies are married. They're married. The parallels between that wedding and Alec's first attempt at getting married in season 1. Since I watched that episode, I keep seeing pictures of the Malik kiss and the wedding kiss side by side. And the emotions, guys, there is so much to discuss. But before we get into the details, I just need to say the writers had such a difficult job. They had to condense a whole planned season into literally 2 episodes for us, and that cannot have been easy. There would have been so many things that they wanted to give to us fans, but they just didn't have the time to do that. And considering they had to wrap it up in this special, I think they did a fantastic job trying to satisfy everyone as best they could. Yes, there were things that we didn't get to fully explore. There were things that people aren't happy about. But if you are disappointed, then please just think about what kind of job these writers had to do. So let's talk about the 2 episodes that we got. There's so much to discuss. I'm not going to even try and break it down into sections. I'm not going to do one episode and then the next. I'm just going to talk about everything overall. At this point you should expect to not get a structured review when you come to my videos. I'm a mess every single time. I'm literally just going to gush about the things that I loved and then talk about everything else. So yeah, let's try and get into it. I want to talk about Eden first because the majority of the first episode took place in Eden. Obviously they were going to try and save Magnus. Can we talk about how much Alec was willing to go through personally to save Magnus? He volunteered to be turned into a vampire. He was literally willing to do anything for the man that he loves. God, I love Alec Lightwood. So we ended up with a situation that is similar to the Alliance rune that Clary creates in the books, that pairs Downwelders up with Shadowhunters so that they can share each other's powers. We had Alec being paired with Lorenzo, Clary was paired with Simon, and Jace was paired with Meliorn. Jace and Meliorn are the pairing that I never expected to need in my life, but I am absolutely in love with them. They were so funny in this episode. Oh my god. Jace is pretty disappointed that he's been paired with a Seelie because he doesn't really have very many powers to use. The way Meliorn made a comment about saying he'd find out when he takes his lover to bed. Quality content from Meliorn, honestly, I love him. And then of course, Jace can't lie. So when Meliorn asked him to rate how handsome he is, Jace says 9. I was honestly in tears. That was just such a wonderful scene. So with Jace being paired with Meliorn and the 2 of them going to Eden. In the books, Jace is the one who kills Meliorn, so I thought shit was going to go down here. And then with Lorenzo being paired with Alec, I thought that we were going to switch Raphael's place in the book with Lorenzo, and I thought we were going to kill off Lorenzo. So before I talk about everything else, let's just talk about the fact that everyone survived. Absolutely everyone, except for Jonathan, survived. The show didn't kill Raphael. I've been joking for weeks. I keep saying, well, I hope they, decide to not kill Raphael. I didn't think that they actually would let him survive, and yet here we are. I felt for certain that Meliorn and Lorenzo at least were going to die. No, the writers of the show were like, you know what? If we're going out, why not just go out happy? Everyone lives. Love that for them. I'm gonna make a Raphael Live t-shirt and wear it proudly. But back to Eden. Alec being paired with Lorenzo gave him warlock powers. Obviously he's not used to this at all, so he loses control a little bit, and it's the ring that Magnus gave to him that calms him down. Magnus is the one who grounds Alec. I'm emotional. You know what, I'm discussing all this and completely forgot to mention the fact that Izzy went in there before them. How did I forget that? Oh my god, I am a mess. So earlier on in the episode, Susie had their first kiss and it was flaming hot. Poor Simon, he finally gets to kiss the girl of his dreams and she bursts into flames. Yay! So the shards of Glorious that hit Izzy have caused Izzy to have heavenly fire within her, and it will keep getting worse if she has contact with those who have demonic blood. I was absolutely crushed for her in the scene when Helen broke it to her, and I love the way that Helen told her as well. She didn't try to hide anything, she was just straight up honest about how bad the situation was. And of course that meant that Izzy couldn't have contact with Simon, so in that scene where she was hugging everyone, she didn't hug Simon, and yeah, absolutely hated it. But she went off to Edom first, thinking that the heavenly fire in her blood would help protect her. And you know, she can shoot the fire out of her hands and bring down demons, but you know, it's still tearing her apart inside, which ain't great. So yeah, now we're on a mission to save not only Magnus but also Izzy. What the scenes in Edom finally gave me was the quality content that I wanted between Clary and Simon. What really got me is how they were talking about how their lives have changed, and they mentioned the Brooklyn Art School, and Simon said, would you not want to go back? And Clary said she wouldn't trade it for the world, and I didn't know at that point that that was a hint as to what was going to happen. I had no clue, I just thought it was a cute little reminiscing scene. It wasn't at all. Yeah, I love heartbreaking foreshadowing. So everyone meets up in Edom. They find Magnus. This reunion between Alec and Magnus, yeah, I love crying. Magnus thought he was never going to see Alec again. I also forgot to mention that the whole reason they need to get Magnus out straight away is because Lilith is trying to bring him down because he refused to open a rift for her. I loved that conversation between Magnus and Lilith. Like, you know, she went in there all soft-spoken, hoping to get her way, and Magnus was just like, no. You know, she even tried to use the emotional blackmail by saying that his friends didn't care about him. Wasn't gonna work. I will just say that I love the actress that plays Lilith, and I think she does an absolutely fantastic job. And she has been so creepy in this show. So yeah, props to her. But anyway, it's Isabel with her heavenly fire that brings down Lilith in the end. Even though she knows the risk that it would mean to her life, she does it anyway. She just flames that bitch straight out of the sky. I love Isabel Lightwood. And then we had one of my favourite scenes where Clary suggests creating a rune to join up and take some of the fire from Izzy. What I loved about this scene is that we had who at first didn't want to take any part in this, but even in the end he was willing to help her. Just where they all held hands in a circle. That was such a heartwarming scene in a literal sense, because you know, hearts were on fire at that point. So yeah, we got to the end of that scene and they all left Edom. And I was just in utter shock that Meliorn had survived, because when Lilith's wing cut him down I was certain that he was a goner, but Lorenzo, even in that moment, was helping Magnus to save him. The character development for Lorenzo, I was not expecting that at all, but here we go. So yeah, everyone got out of Edom alive. I am shook. So whilst all of this was happening, we had scenes between the Seelie Queen and Jonathan. She is nurturing him whilst he turns into his true self. We had a scene of the two of them in bed together in the Seelie court, which we know happened in City of Heavenly Fire. And oh my god, that scene made me so angry. Especially because I had just finished reading Queen of Air and Darkness on the day that I watched the final Shadowhunters episode. If you haven't read Queen of Air and Darkness yet, just mute the video until this little picture goes away. When the Seelie Queen was like, oh, we could create such a powerful child. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my god, you don't even know Ash is a thing in Queen of Air and Darkness. And I just, oh, it made me so angry having to see how shit that's still going on in this shadow world started there. Ugh. But in this world, Jonathan made sure that that was not going to be a possibility ever, because straight after that, he killed the Seelie Queen! I am very surprised that Jonathan killed the Seelie Queen, just because she's that one thing that always survives. Yeah, Jonathan was just like, bye. Even her attempt at turning into a child, it just didn't work. I don't even feel sorry for her. So everything else that happened in this second episode, the way it started, with everyone in bed together, you know, I'm glad they were having some good times. They deserved it after everything they've been through. Sizzy, you know, Sizzy, that happened. I love them with my whole heart. But whilst we're talking about Izzy, can we talk about the scene where Clary asked her to be her parabatai, and Izzy was going to ask Clary the same thing? Oh my god. This is the thing that I wanted to happen in the books. I mean, I love that Clary eventually ended up being paired with Simon because he became a Shadowhunter in the books. That was all nice and everything, but I really love the friendship between Clary and Izzy, so I would have loved them to have ended up parabatai. And in the show, they hinted at that. And that just everything about that scene was so beautiful. I'm just so grateful that we got that. Especially because show Clary and Izzy are so much closer, I think, than what book Clary and Izzy were for a long time. They were just immediately very close friends, and it's one of the things that I especially love about the show. So it made sense for them to want to be parabatai. And yeah, that scene was absolutely one of my favourite things that Shadowhunters has ever done. So with Magnus back out of Eden, Alec wedding is back on. Loved the conversation between Jace and Alec when Alec asked Jace to be his, I've forgotten the word for it, Shadowhunter best man. And Jace was just like, again? But it was such a light-hearted scene, and the genuine smiles from Jace. Seeing Jace that happy, I didn't realise how much I needed to see him genuinely thrilled, because, you know, he's always sad, my poor son, but he was just so happy in that moment, and I loved it. And then we got a brilliant scene between Alec and Maris. And Magnus had picked out a dress for Maris to wear, and Alec was saying that he wanted to invite his father, but he wanted to clear it with her first, and she was fine with it. And I'm gonna gush some more about her character development later, but I love that woman with my whole heart. Then we had an interesting scene between Clary and Jocelyn. Right, let me tell you, when I saw Max and Roy's name come up at the start of that episode, I screamed. I was like, I beg your pardon. So it turns out the angels sent Jocelyn back to Earth as a ghost just so she could warn Clary not to use her rune ability. This was one of the things that I wasn't too happy about, but I understood why it was done because they needed a storyline quickly to wrap things up, and this was a thing that happened. The angels got pissed off that Clary was just creating her own runes, despite the fact that they gave her the ability to create runes. They were pissed off that she made the Alliance rune. They were pissed off that she helped Izzy survive. They're just generally angry. Angels suck! So despite this really lovely reunion between Clary and Jocelyn, there was a sinister meaning to it. But despite that, I absolutely loved the fact that we got a scene between them, because, you know, it is sad that the show killed off Jocelyn, even though, you know, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't miss her. I love her, and I love the relationship between her and Clary and everything, but it wasn't that much of a loss to me in the show, and I preferred the storyline with Luke and Maris. I'm terrible. So speaking of Luke, let's talk about him. The Praetor injects him with the serum and he wakes up as a Shadowhunter. He has reverted back to his natural self. That scene where he woke up in bed with the runes on and he'd been shaved. I love how calm he was about the whole thing. He just woke up like, oh my god, runes. Another thing that I didn't expect to happen, and yet here we are. I think the show obviously intended to have a much bigger storyline with regards to Luke and the Praetor, but in order to wrap it up, they just made the Praetor want somebody rooting for Downwelders on the inside, and that person was Luke. So I think it was a very clever way to wrap that storyline up quickly, instead of just ignoring the fact that it happened. And you know, the scene with Luke walking back into the Institute as a Shadowhunter, that's my, he's no longer my wolf dad, that's my Shadowhunter dad. Yeah, so yeah, that was a plot twist that I loved. Other things that happened leading up to the Alec wedding. The LA Institute. Let me tell you, when it went to the LA Institute and we saw it, my heart dropped. Getting to see the LA Institute, yes! in the LA Institute is Robert and Max, who we got to see again in this episode. I will be completely honest, I thought that they were going to kill Robert and Max off right there and then. When Jonathan stormed the Institute, the fear that went through me, I was like, oh my god, I knew it was too good to be true. They saved Max back then, but they're gonna kill him now, they're gonna do it for the finale. But no, still the writers were like, no death today, you're gonna be happy. So Max survived yet again, which I'm very happy about. Max in this episode looked so much more like Book Max. He was just, oh, bless him. I mean, we're going to ignore the fact that he's aged a lot within the span of a few months in the show, because, you know, that's not the show's fault. It's been a few years in real life, even though it's only been like a matter of months in the show. So Max might have aged a lot in a little time, but that's fine. We love him. So Jonathan then, he's been out and about just slaughtering innocent people, all to get Clary's attention. The scene of him walking through Toronto, just killing people on the streets as he walked past, that was such a brilliant scene. He's a chilling villain. I am very glad that Luke Baines took on the role. I just think he was so much better for truly evil Jonathan Morgenstern. So Clary doesn't want to see anybody else die, obviously, and I'm very glad that although the others put up a fight, they didn't stop her from doing that. So she goes to see Jonathan, and at this point she knows she's not allowed to use her rune ability anymore. She talks to Jonathan, and you know, this scene between them was brilliant, where she tells him about the dreams that she had as a kid. She lets him know that he's always been her boy in the tower. And you can see how genuine she's being in that moment, because, you know, she really did want to have a brother. She didn't want things to end up the way that they did. I mean, it's a horrible situation, and she's trying to explain that to him. The emotion in this scene, she hugs him, and then she takes out her stele and does a rune, and her wings appear, and it's the wings that hug him to his death, basically. Everything about this scene was so beautiful. Obviously, it's nothing like the book, but we knew that that was going to happen anyway. The way she comforted him as she was killing him at the same time. So it didn't feel like she was killing him in a ruthless way. She was doing this because it was what had to be done. God, I didn't expect to end up so emotional over Jonathan's death. And I wasn't upset because Jonathan was dying, because he's a piece of shit. He can totally die. It was just the way Clary handled that situation. It was knowing that in another timeline things could have been completely different, and he could have been the brother that she really wanted. So yeah, that was such a difficult scene to watch, and it happened so calmly. I think that was another thing that didn't really work in the writer's favour. I saw people complaining online that there was no big battle and it was just like a teen drama. But how could the writers have fit in a massive battle when they only had 2 hours to work with? There was no way they were going to be able to do that. Instead, they decided to show how all of the characters have developed since the start. It was just so much more character driven, and I preferred that. So yeah, I liked how Jonathan's death was handled. With Jonathan's death out of the way, it leaves the rest of the episode to focus on the Malik wedding. But already at this point, Clary's runes have started disappearing. I've never been so happy, yet so stressed at the same time. It was the wedding that I have been wanting since the start of this goddamn show. And it was happening. But every time I saw Clary, oh my god, the fear. I want to talk about the wedding first though. I could not have asked for a better wedding. You had Madsy running down the aisle throwing petals. Everyone was there. We had Max and Robert there as well, so all of the Lightwoods were together, and nobody died. So Meliorn, Raphael and Lorenzo, they were at the wedding too, because why the fuck not? You know, I don't even have words to describe how much I love this wedding, but let's try. First of all, Maris's character development, because you know what, it really fucking hit home in this scene, because she walked Magnus down the aisle! Let's think back to episode 12 in season 1, where Magnus walked into that fucking church and Maris was like, what is that warlock doing here? She tried to stop Magnus from being in love with Alec. And then you have this episode It's their wedding, and she is walking Magnus down the aisle towards her son. The amount of tears that was shed in this house, I can't describe how much I love what this show has done with Mayrus Lightwood. So then, who's officiating the wedding? Who could possibly do this task? Jem Carstairs, right? I know last week I said what I wanted from the finale was for Jem to get more of a storyline. I know I wanted that, but deep down I knew it wasn't going to happen because there was not enough time, and this show is about the current Shadowhunters. It's not about Jem, and I know that. And I'm sad, but I understand. But seeing him get to officiate the Malik wedding was literally the best thing. It made me heartbroken that we couldn't have got to know Jem more. Imagine if we'd have gotten another season and we could have explored the history between Magnus and Jem, and you know, that would have meant so much more, because I feel like it meant a lot to book fans, but obviously the show has a lot of fans that have never read the books, because you know that's what shows do, they bring in new fans, and that's wonderful. But there will be fans who don't know the meaning of Jem, like they don't know his history. So he was just this friendly silent brother that happened to be officiating their wedding. But like the rest of us, we know it's Jem, and he's there at Magnus's wedding. And the smile on his face as Alec and Magnus were saying their vows, mood. Like, if that ain't me in that moment. Yeah, and the vows themselves, they got me. Everything about this wedding got me. The kiss got me. Their first dance got me. The fact that Roelle kept playing when she has been our musical queen throughout this whole show. She was the one who sang the song during their first kiss. Yeah, everything. Perfect. Couldn't ask for a better wedding. And then we had all of the characters talking to each other. You had Raphael coming to congratulate Simon and Izzy on being a couple. I love how he was like, you couldn't have picked a better man. The writers even gave little shout outs to Sapphire shippers. You know, just at the end there. Just that little glimmer. Just for those people. And this scene between them was so lovely, and he was talking about how he was going to become a priest. Raphael lived, bitch! Lorenzo and Underhill? Oh my god. See, when Underhill first came into the show, we were all worried. And then when Lorenzo was introduced, we saw him as a threat as well. The fact that at the end, you clearly can tell that they're gonna be a thing. Mind-blowing. I did not see that one coming at all. I went online after the episode and apparently people had called that, and I'm just like, you deserve medals, because I couldn't have predicted that at all. That was genius. God, this episode was fully a win for the gays. Speaking of, Helen and Aileen! They were so cute at Magnus's wedding, and they were talking about what they want their own wedding to be like, and then they kissed while they were dancing, and I'm a mess because I love them. We also had Mayrus about to admit to everyone that she was dating Luke, but of course they all had their suspicions and knew anyway. Such a lovely scene. And I also really appreciated the way Mayrus took Clary to one side and assured her that she was never going to try and be Jocelyn. And I just, God, there were so many lovely moments in this episode that I can't even describe how much I loved. Oh, I also loved as well how accepting Clary was of Sizzy. She was just like, oh, two of my favourite people in a relationship. I'm thrilled. I love her so much. Simon knew that it felt like a goodbye, whereas it took Jace a little while longer to realise that something wasn't quite right. This dance between the two of them, where Jace was talking about how much everything's changed and how he didn't think it was possible to have somebody like Clary in his life. Oh my god. You know, I didn't expect to be crying over Clace, because honestly, Clace goes through so much that I feel like, you know, I'm just prepared for anything when it comes to them now. But yeah, that ruined me. And then we had Clary walking out of the Institute, and you know, I knew that things were going to start disappearing, and I knew that she was going to leave the Institute, turn around, and it not be there anymore. It was absolutely horrible. So basically what the show did is they took Simon's memory loss storyline from the end of City Heavenly Fire and they gave it to Clary instead. And I know I saw a lot of people not liking that, but I actually did quite like it. Again, they were pressed for time in wrapping this up. And you know, Clary is the main character, so I think having this happen to her was a more poetic way to end the show. I don't think it would have had the same impact if it would have happened to Simon in this episode, especially because there wasn't enough time to do a lot of things. So it felt like Clary wasn't really getting much to do in this episode. I feel like it was the right decision to give that storyline to her. And God, it completely ate me up. We jumped to 1 year later. Oh my God, it starts off so wonderfully. You have Alec as the Inquisitor, and he's working with Luke on making things better between Downworlders and Shadowhunters. And you can already see the amount of progress that they've made. And then you've got Magnus being the High Warlock of Alicante. That Malik scene in his apartment, it's just, God, they're so cute. I love them. You have Izzy being head of the Institute. She's being all cute with Simon, who was a Downwelder deputy, and you've just got all these nice things. And then Simon goes off to train, and he's training with Jace. You know what? I did not know I needed this scene until now. That training scene has to be absolutely one of my favourites, because it's just, we got a chance to finally see Jace and Simon and how much their relationship's changed. And it was just such a fun scene. And you had Jace booping Simon. I absolutely adored it. And then after that, you have Simon confronting Jace about the fact that he's clearly gone to check on Clary. And I love that it was Simon to tell Jace that. You know, he's been her best friend since childhood, and he is stopping himself from interfering in her new life. So I love that he was the one that was trying to tell Jace to stop. Oh, I completely forgot to mention that Simon went to go and see Maya as well. Like, there wasn't much Maya in these episodes, which broke my heart because I love her. But at the end, she's opening her own restaurant and she's with Bat, and she just has this wonderful conversation with Simon that I absolutely loved, and I'm just sad that we didn't get to see more, honestly. And then at the very end, we have Jace going off to Clary's art exhibition. She's displaying her artwork at the Brooklyn Academy of Art, where she always wanted to go. And he's supposed to be invisible, he should be glamoured, and clearly he's been to see her many times and she's never looked at him before, but in this moment she looks directly at him. Even though this epilogue was like a couple of minutes and we didn't have any passing of time between Clary leaving the Institute and this scene, it still managed to feel like it had been such a long time since they'd seen each other. And just the emotion on Jace's face, the way he reacted to that, and how utterly shocked he got, and how he tried to get out of there quickly before things got even more serious. She chases after him and things are starting to sink back into her mind. She remembers his name, and then she asks him what the tattoos are on his neck. Oh my God. I know so many people had so many different complaints about the way it ended, but personally I just thought it was a really fitting ending. It broke my heart, but there's hope there. It's open-ended. It's for the viewers to decide what happens after that point. At the end of the day, their love outdid the angel's wrath, and I'm proud of them. So in terms of things that I wasn't too happy about, it was only because the episodes were pressed for time. You know, I'm sad that we didn't get to see more of Luke. He didn't get to be at Malik's wedding, so he didn't really get any closing scene with Clary as she was saying goodbye to everyone. You know, I hated the fact that he wasn't there, but again, that's probably just down to situation. We can blame Freeform for that, not the show. Maya was another one that we didn't really get to see much of. I did see a lot of people unhappy at how Clary was treated in this episode. You know, people think the focus should have been more on Clary as opposed to the Malik wedding. And you know, I can see where those opinions are coming from. You know, they're arguing Clary's the main character, it should have focused on her a lot more. And, you know, I do understand that, and I think that's why they gave her the memory loss storyline at the end instead. But personally, I am really happy that this episode focused on the Malik wedding, just because Malik has been such an integral part of this show. And not just because it's everyone's favourite gay and bi ship. Not ones that end happily. So I think it was really important that the writers did show them getting their happy ending. And I know it meant it took up a lot of time, but I don't think that's the show writers showing favouritism towards Malik shippers. I just think that was something they felt like they needed to do. You know, when you look at this fandom, there is so much support for the LGBT plus community. The fans have raised money for charities that go towards helping LGBT plus people in response to the show being cancelled. And it's very rare that we get to see our non-heterosexual main characters getting married and living happily ever after. So I think it was important to do that. And yes, it might have meant that there wasn't a lot of time for everything else, but I do think it was a good way to do a proper ending for the characters. It was a great place for them to talk and to reflect and be happy, and I do think the show needed that. And of course I'm devastated that Clary didn't get much of a chance to shine in this episode, but I still understand why it happened the way that it did. You know, seeing Malik get married and seeing Helen and Aileen at the wedding, and even Lorenzo and Underhill to a point, we just don't get anything else like that on television. It's very rare to find a show that has a cast of characters so diverse. So personally it meant a lot to me to see that, and I wouldn't trade that Malik wedding for anything. I really wouldn't. So I can understand that people were a bit pissed off at the way Clary was treated, and I do get that, and you know, I'm sad as well, but I'm not going to be angry about anything that happened in these 2 episodes really, because that they are the best that they could have been under the circumstances. Honestly, there are so many things that like I want to say, but I can't find words for them right now. I feel like once I've had a chance to sit down and fully process what's happened and go over the final 2 episodes again, that I will probably want to make another video and discuss more things. But for now, I am really happy with the way that the show ended, and overall I'm just so grateful to this show. I know there was such a civil war between book and show fans, but you know, as a fan of them both, I was able to separate the show from the book and enjoy them as 2 different things, just set in the same world. And overall, I think that the show actually did a good job of sticking to the main story of the books. It didn't go off and completely do its own thing. Each season was based on a certain amount of books. Even if it was just elements of the books that they were taking, they still stuck to that story. And I'm so happy that they did that. And there were things that the show added to the story that I never got to experience when I was reading the books. As I was saying, Clary and Izzy's relationship, I appreciated the way they didn't have that bitchiness at first, they just immediately made them friends. They didn't have Alec's biphobia and his insecurities over Magnus's past relationships. You know, the problems that I had with the books, the show fixed those, and I'm really grateful to them for that. Another thing that I am just extremely grateful for, not only was the cast diverse in terms of sexuality and race, they also had really fucking amazing women. Just all the female characters, like Maris and Maya, women characters were done so well in this show. I couldn't ask for more when it comes to how well the show represented people. And you don't expect that in a fantasy supernatural type show like this one. You know, if Shadowhunters can do that, then there's no excuse for other shows. There just really isn't. If Shadowhunters can just drop an asexual vampire, then where are asexual characters in other media? You know, just, yeah, Shadowhunters. What a show! Just overall, I have so much to be grateful for when it comes to this show. Like, you don't think about how much of an impact a show can have on your life, but like literally, I have made friends because of this show. And then even my videos, I don't think I would be making videos today without this show. I was terrified of speaking in front of a camera, and when I started BookTube, it was something that I'd always wanted to do, but I was extremely awkward, and my anxiety made it so hard for me to film videos. And the first few videos that I did, they were so awkward and I didn't enjoy it. But the reason why I wanted to start making videos was because I wanted to discuss Shadowhunters as well. And once I started doing those videos and I was talking to other fans, it made me so much more comfortable, and eventually I became comfortable enough to do videos. And that honestly wouldn't have happened without Shadowhunters. So yeah, I know it seems weird, but the show really did add things to my life that wouldn't have been there without it. So just that is enough for this show to have a special place in my heart for the rest of my life. I absolutely love where it took these characters, and I got to explore them in new ways. And the show got to do different storylines with them that we didn't expect to see. And yes, there are things that I wish we could have explored more, like Gem, but it is what it is, and overall I am thrilled with how this show turned out. As I was saying, I would probably want to do another overall video at some point once I've had a chance to think of things to say. I have to wrap it up quickly because I don't have enough space left on my memory card, and I know my camera is going to switch off any second. I know there is probably lots that I have forgotten to say. At this point I've only watched the episodes once, so yeah, details, I will have forgotten everything. Please feel free to mention things that I haven't discussed down in the comments, and if there is enough to talk about then I can always do a part 2 of this video. If that is something that you want to see, just talk to me about Shadowhunters in general, please. I'm going to need people to cry to. But for now I'm going to leave it there before my camera has a meltdown and before I have another emotional breakdown over this goddamn show. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos that I have done, whether you've only watched a couple or whether you've been watching them since the very start of the casting process when I made my first video on it. Years of my life stood in this spot. I need a new leather jacket. That's what I've learned from this experience. Everyone who has watched these videos, it has meant so much to me. It has been such a wonderful experience to make these videos. And now that the show is over, I will get back to making videos on books, I promise. So please do stick around on my channel if you like books. I like lots of books. Talk to me about books. That's why I'm here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you again for another Shadowhunters related video because I'm stubborn and refuse to let it die. But for now,